Hello, and welcome to the first episode in my podcast series, Frankly Speaking with Lynn Franks and Friends. This is actually series 4, and I am your host, Lynn Franks. In this series, I'm going to be focusing on some amazing books and some brilliant authors who I admire tremendously, and we're going to be covering all kinds of subjects very relevant to women, particularly wise women. Now, I'm a great believer in our power to manifest our dreams if we have the intention and the passion for what we want to do. And I've shown through my coaching and through my talks many other women that they too can do the same. My guest today, my friend, the author and presenter Janey Lee Grace, epitomizes the type of woman who makes sure she can manifest her dreams. She's absolute proof of this, and her new book, From Wham to Woo, A Life on the Mic, tells her extraordinary story of how she's truly manifested her ideas and enthusiasm to create a joyful and successful reality in both her personal and multifaceted professional life. Starting in her early 20s, travelling the world as a backing singer for Wham, George Michael, and their iconic China tour, Janey became a top radio presenter, working for many years with BBC Radio 2's top DJ, Steve Wright. And Janey got that job literally by going up to Steve at a party and asking him for it. She doesn't hold back. She wrote the UK's first successful natural living book in 2004, Imperfectly Perfect Woman, which was a major success on Amazon. Became a business coach, teaching entrepreneurial women how to get their stories heard and be seen. Mostly women, I would say, because she concentrated on the beauty business and healthy home living. She started the Platinum Natural Products Awards. She became a family constellation practitioner and has even starred in Panto, which she loves. All while staying happily married to her lovely husband, Simon, and bringing up their 4 children healthily, and who she says refused to leave home, which I don't blame them. Janey now runs a sober club where she coaches women to stay sober and healthy while still working on what she's going to do next. Do get her inspiring book and see what she's up to. You can guarantee that it will be something new and exciting for the rest of us. So here I am with my friend, Janey Lee Grace, I'm delighted to say. And we're going to be talking about her life and also this fantastic book that she's written that's just come out, From Wham to Woo, A Life on the Mic, which I have read from cover to cover, and it was enjoyable. And I learned a few things about you I didn't know. Mostly, I think I do, because we've known each other one way or another quite a long time. How long do you think we've known each other now?
Gosh, yeah, that's a good point. It must be at least 15 years.
Yeah, 15 years. I think we met at some green event or other. And I can see as I read the book how many moments there've been where our lives, we may not have even known each other then, but have intertwined.
Yeah,
I mean, I was at that Wham concert that you were singing at, was one of the backing singers at Hammersmith. I remember being there with the shuttlecock down his shorts, and all kinds of places where you were and I was sort of at the same time. And before I talk through the details of your incredible career, which is remarkable, and the different, quite diverse changes that you've had in that time, as you say, from Wham to Woo, Life on the Mic, but it's so much more than that, and how it started as one thing, which you started off as a singer and a dancer and a performer when you were a teenager, very involved in the whole kind of Christian entertainment industry, and then progressed through to very, very diverse areas. But I think maybe if I was trying to think, what's the connection between everything you've done and continue to do? And I'm quite positive that whatever you're doing now is still only a little bit of the journey. You're still going to do loads of other stuff that will, you're probably working on at least 5 projects now. Yeah. What's the thread? And I think the thread that comes through, well, you tell me, but what I see is there's a strong spiritual thread through everything. Even when you were doing the Christian, well, maybe not so much behind George Michael when he's stuffing shuttlecocks down his shorts, but in a degree, what do you think with the connection?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure it says highbrow as that. I actually think the thread is just showing off and just sort of communicating. Right. And I really think that I just loved, for so many years, I just loved pop music.
Yeah.
So that was very much my driving force. And I loved performing. And then as time has gone on, I think this thread that runs through everything is this kind of sense of Well, in fact, let me get to that another way. So, you know, the woo in the title, as I describe in the book, many
Yeah.
people think of the woo as the spiritual
The
woo woo,
woo
which of
woo.
course is
Yeah.
what we know. But there's a double meaning to the word woo, which I didn't even realize until I was writing the book. So I came up with the title, and at exactly the same time as I was thinking of the title, I did a Gallup poll thing, which amazingly it's run by Gallup poll. It's one of those personality tests,
Yeah, I
bit
read
like
about it in the book.
Myers-Briggs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that came up with my number one strength as being woo. So of course I'm thinking, really? You know, that this personality strength knows that I'm into spirituality. But it didn't mean that at all. It meant winning others over. Woo stands for winning others over. And I thought, wow, that's so spot on. That's exactly me. I'm always I just want to win people over. I'm so passionate about whatever it is I'm passionate about that I want you to be too. And I think actually that's the thread that kind of links everything.
I think you're absolutely right, and I'm gonna check out this particular whatever it is, and I'm going to try it because I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm a woo too.
Yeah,
Because
you probably are.
yeah, it's all about that passion and what we're passionate about. We want everyone to be passionate about. And
Yes, exactly.
I was going to ask you what drives you, but I guess that is the answer, really, isn't it?
It is. It is. I mean, years and years ago, you know, when I was very young, and I mean, I'm sure I do mention it in the book that my dad was often ill, and it just became my life's mission I just wanted to try to find a way to make him better, you know. So, and later life, I kind of recognized all these qualities of, you know, the wounded healer and all of that stuff. But clearly that's where I got my interest in, okay, if there's a way, I'm going to find it. And I think those are the kind of threads that run through it, really, that, okay, I've got to be able to find a way. And when I become passionate about something, it's because I absolutely believe in it. So of course I want to bring other people along if I can.
Yeah, which is what makes a good PR, really. Not that PR is necessarily classic PR is what you ever did. It's one thing you haven't done, but in your own way you have. My dad was ill too. My dad was bipolar, and I was always wanting him to get better and everything to be fine. So maybe, you know, that's the thing that creates this sort of
Yeah.
wooiness.
It's possible.
Do you find it easy to focus and concentrate on one thing, or is it also your enthusiasm for so many things that takes you into all these journeys? Because I've decided that I'm definitely ADHD, I've realized, and I haven't had the test, but I know it is, and it's all about being enthusiastic about so many different things, and that can take you a bit off focus at times. But equally, it's, as my daughter-in-law, the psychotherapist, says, it's our sort of secret power, our
Yeah.
superpower.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I've always wanted to do lots of different things, and for a long time I used to think that was a real weakness, because there used to be this expression that people used to use, you know, jack of all trades and master of none. You know that expression, and
Yeah.
and I used to kind of describe myself like that. Oh, I can do a bit of this, I can do a bit of that, but I can't really master anything. And then I forget when it was. I did a whole load of reading around the original Renaissance women, right? And I thought, do you know what? I'll take that. That's a much better spin on it. Okay, I don't just do one thing. I love all everything. I want to do everything.
Yeah.
It's not okay for me to focus on one thing. So the answer is no. I like doing all of it,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. And I think that's why running a PR agency, as I did back in the day, worked so well for me, because I could legitimately work on about 20 or more projects
Yeah.
at any given time, all quite diverse. And that was okay, because that was my work.
Yeah, I
And
love
having to
that.
focus on one thing, I must say, writing a book for me is really hard. I've had a book that I've half written for the last 10 years, which I've really got to finish. And that's the focus thing. Do you find writing books hard, or?
Yeah, well, I've got better at that over the years. I've written a few books. I remember the first, I'm not even sure it was the first book, but the second book that I wrote, my kids were really young. I had a thousand things going on. And somebody gave me the tip, and it's tremendously simple, but I hadn't grasped it before then. And that is literally work out how many words you've got to write, chunk it down. How long does it actually take you to write 1,000 words? When you know, batch out that time and do whatever it takes. I mean, it's such a simple suggestion, but I did it. And for me, it actually meant that a few days a week, I got up at 5 a.m. and did 1 hour. And that's how I got the book done. But if I hadn't made that plan, it wouldn't have happened, really.
Yeah.
So I do think for some things you do have to have a little bit of old-fashioned focus, even if you're scatty like I am.
Yeah, well, that's very good advice for anybody who's listening who wants to write their own book. And I got told by Stella Duffy, who is a friend of mine who's very prolific with her books and plays, that years ago that I need to do 500 words a day, get up early, do that five. And I'm a very fast writer. When I have to do an article for the Daily Mail or whoever I'm writing for 1,000 or 2,000 words, I do it in a matter of hours because I know
Mm,
I've got a deadline. But when it's me, it's like, oh, distraction, distraction. But that's very, very good wisdom.
mm.
So let's talk a bit about the story. So the story starts, your story starts with, as we said, you were singing and dancing and ended up being the backing singer for Wham, which must have been amazing at the time.
Mm.
And you were what at that point? In your about 20 or
I
so?
was 20, yeah, 2021, and yeah, it was amazing. So I started my career with Mary Wilson, the Wilsations,
Oh, I
and then
remember. With the beehive
yeah, with a
hairdos.
beehive, yeah, had a fantastic time squishing in minibuses, 11 of us,
Yeah.
and in the UK and Europe, and then got the gig with Wham, and it was just incredible. I mean, the contrasts were really sharp because the first Wham tour was relatively small theatres, and yeah, Hammersmith, as you say, but then not much longer after that, we were doing these huge stadiums in the States with Chaka Khan supporting Wham, and then of course the iconic China tour, which was just
Amazing.
surreal, really. When we
Yeah.
think back, it actually was surreal. But then the contrast was sharp because then I'd come back and I didn't know if I had another
Yeah.
gig because there was no security as
And
a backing singer.
Connie Filippello, who was the PR for
Yeah,
Wham, is an old friend of mine because we're Buddhists. We've
yes, of
together for
course.
years
Oh,
and years and
Connie,
years. So I
she was
used to
so.
hear particularly about the China tour via her. But we
Did
were
you
always,
did you read the bit in the book? Sorry,
yeah, yeah, and
where I
I've read the whole
mentioned
book.
Connie.
Yeah,
Oh, it
you
was
mentioned Connie. I saw
she was
that.
so sweet. She used to say I just always remember that the very first
Darling,
tour.
darling.
Yeah, yeah, the very first tour I went out there and I just was so unprepared, and it was the first thing I'd done like that. And we were going to all these incredible parties. I mean, like really, really flash parties, and I had absolutely nothing to wear. And she said, "Come with me, come with me." And I go into her room, and she must have about 15 suitcases. So I've got my one little thing, and she just said, "Choose something to wear." And I picked out this outfit, and it was completely incredible and sparkly and amazing. I'm like, oh, I don't know if it might be too much, darling. Every day is like a party.
Oh, she's so
And
glamorous, Connie.
it was just
She's
amazing.
yeah,
She was lovely.
yeah, absolutely lovely. Yeah, we used to work together on this very tiny PR committee for our Buddhist organization,
Oh,
and it was a very
fantastic.
different way of doing things, I must say. So, with these things, so you went around, you toured with them. You said you then came back and had to find the next job. And you sort of went into presenting radio almost by chance. You were on Great London Radio for a while doing
Yeah,
gospel
yeah.
and
Yeah, that came about because I was trying to get my own stuff together. I was trying to be a singer in my own right, and trying to put tracks together. And I got to work with Paul Oakenfold, which was really good fun on a dance track.
yeah, he's a great DJ, isn't
And
he?
yeah,
Yeah,
and then because that
yes.
track got into the kind of lower end of the dance charts, I was touring radio stations, just sort of local radio stations, and it was one station up north, and the guy just said to me, "Oh, can you stick around a bit and read some bits out?" And as I was doing that, I'm thinking, well, this is fun. This is something I could do, read out loud. I like that. And then I kind of just got this idea, I really want to do something in radio, and I just made it happen, and ended up at GLR, which is now BBC London, presenting my own show, which was the gospel show, and that was my kickstart in radio, really.
Yeah. And the thing that you have, or you seem to have, where I sit, is oodles of confidence and the ability to go and chat to people. And it's through the book that you might see at a party or you might be introduced and by another helpful friend, and that takes you on to the next stage. And for a lot of women, having self-confidence is the biggest thing that holds them back. I mean, they feel very uncomfortable. I can feel very uncomfortable even now walking into a room where I don't know people and have to go out and start chatting to them. That doesn't seem like a problem you've ever had.
Well, you see, I see it completely differently. You see, I
Of course.
don't believe that I had confidence at all. In fact, I was incredibly insecure for so many years. I feel I've got confidence now.
Yeah.
It's completely different now. Now I'm much more authentic. I know who I am. But back then, I was unbelievably fragile and insecure. But what I did have was an incredible determination. I was so determined, desperate, you might call it. If I knew what I wanted, I wanted it so badly that I would do whatever it took. And, I think, I really think that I was manifesting before I knew what the word meant.
It's very interesting
So
you should say that. And also because it's something you really do believe in,
yeah,
but the rest of it goes out the window. Because I
exactly.
remember that Ruby Wax, who was definitely the mole in the whole ad fab thing with me, he used to
Yeah.
still watch me all the time and then report back and turn it into comedy, which I guess it was. I remember saying to her once that some newspaper had said I was pushy and I was deeply offended. And she said, but you are, there's nothing wrong with being pushy. And I was appalled with the thought I was being pushy, because I always felt incredibly shy and insecure inside. But it was that when I believed in something,
Exactly that.
the rest of the insecurity would go out the window and I just go for it.
Exactly that. I really love that line in, and always say it to my kids when they're nervous about anything. There's a fantastic line in the Matt Damon movie, We Bought a Zoo. I bet you never thought we'd be talking about that. But in that movie, there's one line where he tells his son to go and talk to a girl, right, who is
Right.
terribly nervous. And he just says to her, all you need is 20 seconds of courage. Just 20 seconds. And I always tell my kids that. And that's literally what I used to do. I just used to think, I want this so badly. And really, what have I got to lose? I'm just going to manifest it happening. And that would be it. I'd go and chat to Steve Wright and say, why don't you give me a job?
And then he did. Did you think
he
it was easier for us? I mean, I remember phoning up Petticoat magazine, which is even slightly before your time, I think, which was the first teenage girls magazine. And I wanted a job there. And I called and I called and I called and I got through finally. They were looking for a secretary for Eve Pollard, who's, you probably know, who's sort of the first
I remember
Fleet
who she
Street
is.
woman editor, also Claudia Winkleman's mum, but who installed a lot of confidence, I think, with her own daughter. But Eve was looking for a secretary. She wasn't much older than me, and that's how my whole thing started. And it was just having that determination to manifest. Yeah, we know how to manifest, and it's based on our own love and passion to what we want to manifest. That's
totally true.
So the other thing I want to ask you is also is on about intuition. That's also tied in with it somehow. Do you follow things because intuitively feel that's what you should be doing and there's an opportunity, or do you get in touch with that side of yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've always had a really strong intuition, actually. But for quite a lot of years, I wasn't able to listen to it. I wasn't able to tune into it enough. But yes, I think the intuition is huge. I've always been able to have that sense of, I absolutely know in my gut, I know in my heart whether I'm meant to go after something or not. There's only been a few occasions where I've really not listened to my intuition at all. But they're few and far between.
And in the world of woo, the other world of woo that we were talking about before, you, like me, use your crystals these days anyway.
Yeah.
And meditation and all the other and the various tools that we can use these days to follow our intuition and sort of oracle cards. I don't know about you. I mean, I play with a lot. I've got a whole area here, and it's as much as anything, it's sort of fun playing with all those things, but also actually they are really powerful tools for honing in on what our own unconscious mind is really telling us, whether it's something that we want, or whether somebody said to me once, it's so true, when I was buying a jacket, an old boyfriend in Zara, and he said, do you want it or do you need it? And it's like with anything in life, is that something we want because of perhaps the wrong reasons, or is it something that we need because it will help us grow and move us on? I don't know. I mean, do you meditate every day? Do you use the tools that you've got there, the crystals and the?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very sort of chaotic with it, if truth be told, a bit like everything else, I suppose. I can't say that I have a fantastically structured practice. I wish I could, but it's not quite like that for me. Because I suppose I do have this intrinsic kind of wanting to do everything at once thing. I've got that going on a lot. So for me to be in stillness is really hard. So I've really had to work hard at that. But over the years, I've finally managed to find, stuff that works for me. It's just that it's not always the same. So what is always the same is I will always, without fail, have a short amount of time before I do anything else when I first wake up. This is sometimes a tip I say to people who find meditation hard, and I'll say to them, well, do you have 5 minutes? And they'll go, well, yeah, I've got 5 minutes. Okay, well, before you do anything, don't switch your phone on. Don't even have a phone by your bed, ideally. Don't open the newspaper. Don't put the radio on. Don't talk to anyone. Just at least go within for 5 minutes before you get up. And that one tiny thing is sacrosanct. So I never, ever, ever put a phone on before I've at least checked out how I am. And then I tend to use things like journaling. I still love journaling. That makes a massive difference for me. I find that if I've committed to pen to paper, if I've committed to doing it, I often get a thought come up that I don't really want to write down. And then that's quite powerful because I know I'm meant to be considering that.
And do you ever read your journals back? Or
no, never. No, me never read them back. I probably wouldn't be able to read my writing, to be fair. It's just the process of dumping it all down. As Louise Hay famously said, you can't clean the house till you can see the dirt. So actually just getting it all out there on paper is quite therapeutic. So I do that. And I think that's like a form of meditation. Yeah. But then I add in, lovely stuff like going to a gong bath whenever I can. I've actually got somewhere local now where I can go regularly, which is amazing. And doing as many sort of things that bring me back to balance as I can fit in.
And I am going to ask you about family constellation, which I know because we've talked about it in the past. It's quite a difficult thing to describe, but you were one of the first people I know, maybe the first, in fact, that talked to me about it and explained what a big difference it had made to your life. So how would you explain family constellation work for those who don't know?
It is hard to explain. It's about helping people to untangle dynamics, family systems. It usually comes back to it. Another name for it is systemic family systems, and what it's based on is the idea that we've all had instilled in us a whole bunch of ideas and stories and limiting beliefs since we were children. Trauma, of course, sometimes, whether that's trauma with a big T or a little t, it's still trauma. So we've all had something instilled in us. And in addition to that, we have inherited family trauma. So sometimes there's something that was felt by our ancestors way back, but we're still carrying it. We're literally carrying it within our cellular memory. And what constellations can do, it can help shine a light on what that belief is or what that story is. And we can literally untangle it so that we can see it isn't ours to carry. And it's unbelievably powerful when you realize you can't change the past. We can't go back and change it. It's a huge shame because some people have had horrific trauma. They have, but we can't change it. But we can change our relationship to it now. So this expression, we can't change what happened to us, but we can change what we made it mean. And that's huge. And for me, the first time I did constellations, I'm now a practitioner and I love it. Yeah. I love it. I host workshops with an amazing trauma therapist. But the first time I went along myself to do my issue, as we call it, to do a piece of work, what I presented with was that I'm not a good enough mother. I felt shame and guilt that I wasn't a present enough mother. That was what I presented with. But of course, that wasn't what the constellation was about at all. It was about my relationship with my own mother. And of course, my mother had had mental illness all her life. She'd lost her mum when she was very young. And the constellation showed quite clearly she had nothing to give. She had nothing to give. And when I was able to see that representation, oh my goodness, it changed everything. It was a lot more complex than that. But just that little vignette was able to change everything. And I realized through that constellation that she couldn't give me anything more than that she had nothing to give me. But you know what? She gave me life. And the other lovely expression, I got enough to be me. Right? And that's okay. And it changed everything. It completely changed everything because I no longer needed to be so kind of, I don't know, it completely changed me. Even the kids noticed.
You're very, very fortunate. I had big ups and downs with my daughter, and we've both done family constellation work, and we went together at her suggestion, which apparently you never do. You don't actually go with the person you're having issues with to do family constellation work.
Yeah, it's better not to.
It was quite some time ago, and it was really painful. But anyway, I have done other family constellation work, not with my daughter, which has been so powerful. But I was also talking about my relationship with my son at that particular session. And he has lots of little children. He's got 5 now. And different people within the room took on the characters of the 5
Yes.
grandchildren, and they started without even knowing it. My mouth was just open,
I know. It is amazing.
taking over the physical characteristics of each one of those children.
Yeah.
One would stand a certain way, one would suck their finger a certain way. It's like, wow, the magic.
It is incredible. It's hard to describe it. I wrote an article for Spirit and Destiny magazine many years ago about constellations, about my experience of constellations.
Yeah.
And the editor just kept sending it back with, like, red line through it. But what do you mean the field?
Yeah.
What do you mean the energy? And in the end, I had to send it back and say, look, I've done my best to explain this, but you might just have to have a line at the end that says, okay, so it's magic, try it. And they printed it. And someone actually rocked up at Constellations a few months later. She had been in prison, bless her. She'd been homeless. She was unbelievably traumatized. And she'd picked up this mag in a dental surgery and just said, I don't know why, but I'm going to go and try this. How amazing is that?
Amazing. What you're making me think is I must go back and do it again.
Come and do ours. We've got one in Hertfordshire.
I wish you were nearer, but yes, maybe. Or you come and do it down here.
Yes, exactly. That sounds good.
We'll do a retreat together, something like that. That would be wonderful. So to get back to your story, as you were developing your career as a radio presenter, ultimately ending up on Steve Wright's show in the afternoon a number of times a week and having your children in between.
Yeah.
And what else were you doing at that point? Quite a few other things. But what you started doing, which I thought was very interesting, was you started training mostly other women how to get their story out there and how to do their PR and how to be seen and how to be heard. So what sort of advice would you give now, or did you give them? Just briefly, you don't have to do a whole workshop. But
that came about. If I tell you how it came about, that will make a lot of sense, I think, because I had never considered doing anything like that at all. But when I was on Radio 2, we would regularly have guests come in. Obviously, we had lots of A-list celebs and top experts and politicians and everything else. But we would also have authors who the publisher would manage to get them a slot on our show, which was pretty incredible because we had 9 million listeners. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes those authors would come in and the book was good, but they weren't, bless their heart. They're probably fantastic writers, but really not good at communicating what their book was about. Now, most of the time, that didn't bother me. We just used to laugh about it. But one day we had a hypnotherapist come in who will remain nameless. And so, of course, I was so excited. I mean, you're talking 12 years ago, long before everyone was talking about hypnotherapy. And the book was fantastic. And I was so excited, like, this is going to be mainstream radio. 9 million listeners. I'm going to get to chat to someone about hypnotherapy. I love it. But then, unfortunately, as an interviewee, this person was pretty shocking, and it was just so awkward, and Steve we were pre-recording. Thankfully it wasn't live. We pre-recorded due to time constraints, and Steve actually said, I don't think we can run it. I don't think we can actually run that interview, and I was furious and exhausted and just incensed, and that made me think, I can't stand this, because it's not rocket science. Okay, it's not. It's just skills. And from that moment on, I thought, if there's someone with a message, particularly if it's a message that I care about as well, I want to help them be able to share their message. So once I'd kind of come to that conclusion, I just offered to help people get real clarity on what their angle is and be able to describe what it is they do. You'd be amazed how many people can't describe what they do.
Oh, I know. I do. I mean, I teach women too, particularly women.
Yeah,
men are better at sort of being seen.
Some of them,
more confidence, but some of them aren't either.
Not always.
Right.
But yeah, that was the crux of it, really. I just sort of help people not just attract an opportunity, because a lot of business owners and authors are quite good at attracting opportunities, but then when they've got them, they don't maximize them. And that was the piece I wanted to try and help people with.
And you're still doing that work?
Yeah, I still do some of that. Yeah, I mean, everything rolls into everything else at the moment. But I still love doing that. If it's someone whose work I endorse, then yeah.
Brilliant. And about the same time that I know the other thing you were doing, you were juggling having all these babies, you were juggling being on Steve Wright show, breastfeeding in the studio, as you write about in the book.
No, that was at Virgin.
Oh, that was at Virgin.
I would never have got away with that at Radio 2.
No.
I was breastfeeding at Virgin.
Yeah. breastfeeding at Divergent. All the other work you were doing, you were writing your first book yourself, which was The
Yeah,
Imperfectly Natural Woman.
yeah,
How did
yeah.
that
So,
come about?
well, that literally came about through being on Steve's show. When I had my kids late, and when I had Sonny, my first child, that was when I suddenly everything changed for me, and I became absolutely passionate about sustainability and skincare without chemicals, and treatments and everything. It literally was like a second career for me. And so I was on Steve's show, and I think by that time I had two children. And then not long after, I was pregnant again. But no, I had three. I had three at that point, beg your pardon. And then not long after, I was pregnant with the fourth. And then a publisher came to me and said, look, we've heard you on the radio talking about all your kind of natural stuff and skincare without chemicals and cleaning your home without chemicals and crystals and goodness knows what. And we've heard you talk about it. And we know that Steve kind of takes the mickey a bit, fades the mic down. But we're thinking you must have had a lot of people genuinely want to know. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I get emails all the time. And so the publisher said, do you want to put all this in a book? And at first I said, well, I don't think I'm a writer. But she said, well, I'm sure you are, or if you're not, we can help you. And that's how Imperfectly Natural Woman came about. And I'm very grateful I chose that title because, I am
Great
imperfect.
And
so
title.
is pretty much everyone else, At the time, I was so ahead of my time, though, because the book came out 2006. And my line is that I was writing about coconut oil and kale before they hired their own publicist. Right? Nobody else was doing that, apart from maybe Gwyneth Paltrow. But then everything
she wasn't
promoted,
doing it then.
Was she not doing it then?
No.
Later on she was,
later,
but then
much later.
everything she promoted was, 500 quid. There was nothing that wasn't 500 quid.
No, she was much, much later. No,
but
you
my
were
stuff was
way ahead of your
relatable,
time. Exactly. And in a way, because I was a little bit before you, but not a lot, I wrote the Seed Handbook in 2000, and that was teaching women how to start their small businesses where they would be making chemical-free, beauty products and lovely coconut things. And it was all about, but there weren't that many of us that were aware of it, but it grew. It grew a lot from your book. It grew a lot from my book, and it grew a lot from talking to women about the importance of having pure, natural ways of looking after ourselves. I mean, even now, it's only just really taking off that people understand if they have processed foods, if they have chemicals in their washing up liquid, if they put things on their skin as cosmetics that have got chemicals in them, it's going to do them a lot of harm.
Yeah,
it's taken a long time.
It has taken a long time. And I think what's really been very interesting is that, obviously I've seen massive change over the years. When I wrote that first book, there were literally 5 brands of natural organic makeup. 5. And I really did my research, and there were 5. And look at it now. Look at it. It's incredible. However, what has changed and irks me, to say the least, is that there's been, what's happened in recent years is the greenwashing stuff that really gets my goat. And I've been sent, not recently, because I think people have kind of got my number and they know that I won't accept it. But people have sent me products, maybe detergents or whatever, because they'd like me to endorse it because it's eco. And I'll take a look at whatever this is, and it's got a recyclable box. Well, that's lovely. And the ink and the dye on the ink on the box is plant-based. Well, that's lovely. But when you actually get to the product, it's still going to kill the fish, right?
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
almost as if that doesn't matter. So that's why the word holistic for me, even though I don't love the word, I can't think of another one. It has to be holistic. Don't just tick the eco box with the packaging. If you start with what's good for your health, you generally tick the eco box without trying.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. Now, at the same time that you were doing all that, you were getting involved in what I suppose is very compatible with natural juices. I remember when you first went off to do a course with Jason Vale. You came back, we must have met somewhere, and you were telling me you were so excited about all these natural juices that we could do that keep ourselves healthy. Do you still make yourself lots of juices and work with Jason at all? Because you really put him out there.
Jason was really instrumental in sort of helping me, I suppose, just kind of hone hone some of the basics, I think. I love Jason's approach, and we've done podcasts and stuff together. So I still make, I now do juice shots rather than big juices. I do juice shots pretty much every day, particularly in the winter. I'll have a ginger shot every day. I can't think of a better way.
I've just thought of a new business for you. Janey's juice shots.
I don't need another one. No,
yeah,
seriously.
Janey's, well, see if you can license it. Janey's juice shots. You should have them everywhere.
Well, I mean, it just keeps you, it helps to keep you well, and it's so simple, isn't it? And also now with the work that I do with, helping people ditch the booze, I tell you one thing, here's an amazing tip. If you're someone who, you struggle and you want to reach for the sugar, or you want to reach for a glass of wine or whatever, just make yourself a bright green juice, because trust me, nobody can go for sugar or wine after that.
Well, I start every day off with a organic celery juice that I make.
Do you? Oh, good for you.
But that doesn't mean I don't go after the sugar come 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I have to say.
But well, then have another shot before it.
I'm not sure about that. But anyway, I mean, I'm with you on it completely. And well, there's a couple of things I wanted to say. First of all, the other thing that you didn't mention a lot in the book, but I know about, is the platinum awards you do.
Yeah.
Which are taken so seriously now by the natural health beauty industry. And I have a lot of friends that won awards this year with you for some reason. I had at least 4 or 5 who are thrilled, and how important that sort of acknowledgement and those awards have become in the industry is fantastic to see.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not anything that I've really been able to put a huge amount of investment behind. I wish I could make it even bigger.
Yeah.
It's quite small in the sense that it's kind of just me saying, look, I've got these amazing celebrities. I usually work with Joe Wood, which is fabulous.
You asked me once and I didn't have the time, but please ask me again.
Oh, I will, definitely.
I'd love to get myself back on judging with you.
Yeah, and it's just fantastic, because what it often does is it gives an opportunity to very small brands who sometimes it might be one woman making something in her kitchen.
Mostly is.
Yeah, it often is. Or it might be a really big brand like Weleda, who've got a completely new product. And you can get your hands into get your product into the hands of some lovely celebs who love trying it, and me, obviously, and get people to vote for you as well. And it just helps raise some awareness. And what I really love about the Platinum Awards is that, as with everything with me, I won't stick to one thing. So I won't stick to just beauty. I have to bring in, supplements and treatments and everything, even authors, even books.
Oh, right. Oh, well, yeah, no, definitely pull me in on that again. And then the thing that I was most surprised at in the book, which I really didn't know about, was the panto.
Yeah. Oh,
are you still doing that?
If you've got any friends, let them. I loved doing panto. And I tell the story in the book of how I was offered to do a panto. And it was when it was about, what would it be? About 6 years ago. So kids still, a lot younger. Really tricky. It was miles away. And I thought, I just don't think I can do it. I don't think I'd be away from home. It was a relatively short period of time. I thought, I just don't think I'm going to be able to
They pay
make this work.
Don't they, the pantos?
The big ones do. This one didn't. It wasn't huge. I'm sure they do if you're a big time celeb.
You're at the Palladium.
This wasn't. Oh yeah, exactly. No, this wasn't an awful lot of money. And I thought, I just can't see I can make it work. And then I went and had a massage. I'll always remember this, because there's this incredible woman, the muscle whisperer, she used to call herself, and she was working on my back, and she said, "Oh, this is off the scale. This tension, it's off the scale." I was like, "Oh, I know." And then she said, "Lots of my clients are the singers and dancers, and they work in the West End." She said, "The ones that are the happiest are the ones that do panto, because they have such fun." And I said, "Wow, that's fascinating, because I've just been offered one." She said, "Do it, just do it." And I remember thinking, yeah, sod everything, I will. Honestly, I can't tell you, it's such a laugh. If you're someone who's a show off like me, it just is so much fun. And then I did another couple after that, and then it was the lockdown and the bloody theatre was closed, so I couldn't do it. So now I'm waiting for the call,
waiting for the offer. Well, you should. I mean, there's an awful lot of people going on theatrical tours right now, whether they've got books out or anything else. People that have got something to say and are doing like 35 theatre tour. Have you thought about doing that? I mean, I know
I'm doing a bunch of bookshops, which is fantastic, and we do some video clips and a whole bunch of stuff. So that's all happening at the moment.
Well, the next stage you need definitely to go on these theatrical tours.
Well, it would be nice if anybody wanted me.
Somebody will. Somebody will manifest. You know how
I'm doing one. I'm doing one in January. Actually, I'm doing a theatre in January in Andover, so that'll be fun.
Well, that'll be the start.
Looking forward to that.
I can see you doing loads more. So the final thing is that I want to talk about is the Sober Club, because that came from nowhere. And you were not an alcoholic, not that I ever. You just liked a glass of wine like so many others.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is the distinction that has to be made, is that I was never at rock bottom. In fact, the expression is high bottomed, and I wish. But I was drinking pretty much every day, as do loads of people. And I now realise that the culture that we live in gives us this impression that there are two types of drinkers. So there are those people that are at rock bottom and they're clinically dependent and they need support and rehab. And then there's everybody else, and they're just happy social drinkers, and every now and then they just can't hold their beer. And that's the perception. So because I knew I wasn't at rock bottom, but I knew I also wasn't okay, I didn't know where to look. I felt completely isolated. I knew something had to change. Well, it went on for years. I mean, I've been sober 7 years nearly now.
Right.
But up until 7 years ago, the stopping and starting, the deciding to quit for a while, must have gone on for a good 10 years, at least 10 years, possibly 15, because it all ramped up when the kids were young, as it so often does, the mummy wine thing, and thinking that Sauvignon is the answer to the busy day. So it ramped up, and there would be times when I knew something had to change, but I had no idea how to stop, because even though I was relatively bright and successful and I could do a lot of things, I couldn't seem to do that, because, the minute it got to 6 o'clock, the wine witch was in my ear. And I remember trying all kinds of things, like mentioning it to a therapist or a GP if I went for something else. And the answer was always, well, you look fine, just have an alcohol-free day. And that's what kept me stuck for another 6 years. And I now realise that I'm not up for prohibition. I'm not expecting therapists, GPs, or anyone else to stop drinking if they don't want to. All they needed to have said to me was, well done you for noticing that it's not serving you. Why don't you have a look at, the Sober Club or and other resources? That's all they needed to do. They needed to just help me recognise that there is a world out there of people who choose not to drink. And that's when everything changed, when I finally found that there is a world where people choose not to drink.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really drink, which is the irony again. Go back to our fire. I've actually been walking around with a glass of champagne in my hand the whole time, and I've got very much done.
No, you don't drink much.
No, and I had chocolate's my thing. Definitely 5 o'clock chocolate bar, but I try and get hold of that as well, because that's not so bad for you. But anyway, so what if you become a member of the Sober Club? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, so the Sober Club I just set up. What was happening was I realised that I had to share this. At first, I didn't want to at all. I felt such shame around it all, but I realised I had to. If it could help one person who was just like me, then I would. So I started my podcast first. So I have a podcast called Alcohol Free Life, where I, interview amazing people. I started that, and then I did a TEDx talk called Sobriety Rocks Who Knew. And it was actually at the TEDx talk, I'd completely forgotten that there was going to be an audience. I knew I was doing it for the camera, but I'd forgotten the audience. And suddenly in the break, people came up to me and said, "You've just described me. That's what's happening to me. I'm waking up at 3 a.m. wondering what the hell is going on. I don't feel authentic." And I thought, I have to do something. So I decided to set up this online community where I would bring together all the well-being stuff as well as the support for people who want to quit. So it's a very low cost monthly subscription. We have an online course. We have
How much is it
Zoom meetings, $16.99.
Right.
So it's less than a glass of wine a week.
Yeah.
And, there's an online course. There's a whole library of amazing content, completely exclusive content, a brilliant supportive community where we're cheerleaders for each other. And people join us who are sober curious, they're thinking about it, right through to people who've been sober for 10 years. Because, there's always something else we want to level up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's brilliant. I don't know how you do it all. good job your children are getting a bit older now. So what, so now you've got the book out and you've got the Sober Club running and you've got the Platinum Awards going and you're still doing a bit of panto from when it comes in. And I guess the radio coming in at any point, more broadcast. What else? There must be things you working on. I'm absolutely sure of it. At least two or three other things. What's the big picture?
Well, in addition to all of that stuff, I train people to be sober coaches.
Okay.
And that came about because I've been a sober coach now for about 5 years. I absolutely love it. And I realized that there are some training programs out there to support people who want to stop drinking. Because obviously, if you have a bit of one-to-one support, it can make a massive difference. But mostly they focus just on those initial few weeks. And for me, it's never only about not drinking. It's about creating a life you don't have to escape from. So I wanted to be able to train people with the whole holistic picture. So that's what we do. So I do it about 3 times a year. And it's amazing. It's transformational, and we have a kind of little family of coaches and very collaborative. So that's really cool. I love doing that. And you mentioned the radio. The reality is, I'm not really doing any mainstream radio, and I'd absolutely love to. So just like with the panto, I'm very open to anything else coming in. Obviously, I can't do anything full time, but no. I'd love to do more radio because radio is completely addictive.
Yes, I love radio.
It really, really is.
Yeah. I love it. I used to do a little bit myself years ago. And then I was chair, I don't know if you remember, of a women's radio station.
I do remember that. Yeah, fantastic.
And I don't want to end on a downer, but I got called the other day by a journalist who's looking into this whole Mohammed Al-Fayed thing. And he reminded me that he had bought the women's radio station. And then he changed the name from Viva to Liberty. And I just thought, God, we've got to change this patriarchal world. Not that we ever are going to allow anything, I would hope, happen like that horrible mess that he left behind him at Harrods, all the abuse to women. But generally, we women have to really come together and make sure there's a different world for our daughters and granddaughters to grow up in. So I don't know to bring that one in, but radio. I love radio too. I agree with you. It's I would have thought there was a definite space for you on radio. You're so good at it. I remember when Steve wasn't able to do the Sunday love songs and you did those. I remember all of it.
I used to love doing that. That was a fabulous show.
You've got a great voice for radio.
That restored your faith in love, definitely.
Well, there have been moments when my faith in love hasn't been too good and I'd switch it on and I think, oh, shut up. Then my cynical self would go and I think, no, that's all lovely. That's all lovely. And I love listening to Michael Ball do it now. He's so good.
Yeah, he is great.
I'm a bit of a Radio 2 fanatic, as you might gather. So, okay, well, we've covered an awful lot of stuff and you have an awful lot of stuff to cover. And how old are your children now? Because time goes fast.
My daughter is 19 and
I remember when you were pregnant with her.
Yeah.
That was only longer than 15
years.
Yeah,
that was literally when Imperfectly Natural Woman came out, just after Lulu was born, which I do not recommend bringing a book out when you've just had a baby. That's not a good idea. And the oldest is 26.
Wow, it's all gone fast. And you're still happily married to your lovely husband.
Yeah.
And you talk a bit about relationships and your own relationships in the book and not hanging out for too long with something that isn't working, which I think is always a good
absolutely. Yeah,
story to share.
Yeah, I stayed way too long in the wrong relationship, but
what a life you've got. I'm so full of absolute admiration, an incredible life. You are a person who has walked her talk, loved everything you do, made them happen, manifested like I've never seen almost so many things from so extraordinary.
It's just determination because I don't know that it's luck. I mean, I don't think it's luck. I don't think I've been handed anything on a plate, actually. I didn't have the easiest start. No. I think it is that thing of when you set your intention, and you can't have everything. No one can have everything. But when you set your intentions, some of what you've set your intentions on, you can make happen.
Well, you've definitely made them happen. I mean, it's all in this book. It's a fantastic book. And I hope millions of people will buy and read it because it gives us proof that any of us can actually make our intentions
And the
real
pictures
and
are fun, aren't
manifest.
they? Some great pictures.
Yes,
I
I
can't
think you
believe
should
I
be.
found them.
I've seen you put a few of those pictures on social
I
media, but I think
know.
you should put them all up on social media. They're
Well,
wonderful.
I was just so thrilled that I'd actually kept a photo album, because at first I thought, oh, the book's going to just have really boring promotional pictures. And then, because of course, we didn't have smartphones in the day, did we? We weren't
Exactly.
sort of
No, we didn't.
photographing every single thing. So I must have had to have taken the actual camera and then gone to the chemist and then got them developed. And thankfully, I kept the book. So there's some many never seen before pictures of Wham tours and
Wonderful
all sorts
pictures. I
of
love
stuff.
all those pictures of you in the 80s with your back home
With my massive hair. Do
your
you know
mini
what? I can't be
dresses
the
on top
only
of the tops.
person. Did you have big hair? You must have done.
No, I was a mod. So
Oh, you were.
I
Oh,
had,
I see.
Vidal Sassoon
Of
geometric cut. I was
course,
a bit
of
older than you, so
course.
it was a bit
Nice.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
But 'cause your phase of your age group was actually redoing the 50s. So all that
Well, sort
hair
of
was really
50s,
kind of
60s. Yeah.
whereas when I was, it was a different, but all good and all wonderful memories. And
Yeah.
I haven't got enough pictures. I've got lots of pictures now, but as you say, the life without a smartphone was a very different
Yeah, totally.
experience.
Yeah, so some of the things I think back, oh my goodness, I've got no way of proving that happened.
Yeah, I know it happened. Well, thank you very, very much. I would love to we've got to do some more things together. I know
Yeah,
you've come out to
definitely.
Somerset before and we'll have to work it all out.
Love
Get you
to.
here again. And like I say, everybody I know should buy the book, read the book,
Oh,
and
thank you
realize
so
how
much.
you
I
can
really
make,
appreciate
you
it.
did it, and we all can do it, and I've done it, is
Yeah.
to get our dreams and make them reality.
Yeah. And 20 seconds of courage is all you need.
20 seconds of courage, yeah. Brilliant. All right, well, I will thank you very much, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, Lynn.
I love to make my podcast as interactive as possible and always put in a small special exercise based on the inspiration that I heard when I spoke to my special guest. Today, I'm going to base it exactly on where Janey manages to get her power of manifestation and where she gets her drive. And how does she manage to make so many of her ideas come true? She told me that her enthusiasm for her projects gives her the confidence to approach people who can help her, like cheekily introducing herself to Steve Wright at a party and asking him if she could be his sidekick. He was so impressed that he gave her the job. And that wasn't the only time that Janey didn't hold herself back from going forward. So this week, why don't you think of one person you could approach who could help you manifest your dreams and persuade him or her to give you a chance? I'd love to know how you get on, so do drop me a line on Instagram or Facebook. Thank you so much for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making it. Remember, we're going to be putting up episodes in this latest series of Frankly Speaking every 2 weeks. So do join me again and listen to the conversations I'm going to be having with some of my very favourite women. If you like what you hear and want to learn more practical methods to help you plant the seeds in your own empowerment journey, then please subscribe to this podcast, rate and review it. Also, why not visit my website, lynnfranks.com, where you can join my mailing list and together with thousands of like-minded women, be part of my network where you can hear about my programs, my courses, and live events. Until then, see you next time.